50% of them would not hire a neurodiverse candidate if they knew that they were neurodivergent up front. Autism is the neurodiversity with the highest unemployment rate. I don't see an end in sight for the neurodivergent, not from a governmental standpoint. But if you're a corporate company or corporation who have neurodivergent people on your staff, they could be in hiding because they don't feel comfortable reaching out, or don't feel comfortable coming forward and saying, I need help. They're probably just still trying to figure it out on their own. But you have neurodivergent people. And if you're not listening and respecting everybody, you're going to be losing out on a wide array of things that can be experienced and ideas that can be shared. Welcome to Inside the Pickle Jar, a podcast where we dive into the wonderfully quirky world of neurodiversity. I'm Tonya Weaver, your friendly neighborhood relationship coach, specializing in neurodiverse individuals and neurodivergent myself. From communication tips to managing those "did you really just say that" moments, every episode will share real-life stories, expert advice, and practical strategies to help you tackle obstacles and build stronger, more fulfilling connections. Listen on to Inside the Pickle Jar, where every connection matters, every pickle has its place. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Inside the Pickle Jar. I just want to continue the conversation talking about neurodiversity and how it's not being well supported, sometimes by our own neurodivergent community, sometimes by our United States government, who's rolling back a lot of the DEI policies, especially in this current administration. And sometimes it's just around all of the lip service that companies will give to supporting neurodiversity, supporting DEI. And when that doesn't happen, I just want to call out some of those stories. I've spent over the last year talking about how neurodivergent people can seek support and can ask for what they need. I've talked about how they can do things better for themselves, whether it's executive function. I've interviewed a lot of people who've talked about some of the problems that they've encountered with their own jobs and how it's been for them pre and post diagnosis. But today I spend a lot of time, I think these days, doom scrolling through social media. And by the way, I've heard some experts. There's a great podcast called Professor G talking about how social media isn't really social media anymore. It's mainly just content creation, whether it's AI, whether it's China or Russia, or just a lot of, fundamental content creation, but it's not really being social much anymore. So we do have to be really careful what we intake as far as what we consider to be lots of content creation out there. And it's still called social media, but it's really content creation, absorption, pretty much. So anyway, part of my doom scrolling, because so much has gone upside down, especially in the country that I live in, trying to figure out how to survive this administration. And I ran across an article written by Lucy Berry on LinkedIn she is the director of Autism's All Right, a neurodiverse advocate. And she writes in LinkedIn, "It is a sad state of affairs when the parents and careers of an autistic man ask if he could start to be paid for the free work he is doing and are point blank told no, and are also told he can no longer volunteer." This is at Waitrose, which is in the UK. And Waitrose is John Lewis. I believe the full title of them are the John Lewis Partnership in the UK. By the way, there are some statistics. Maureen Dunn writes in her book, The Neurodiversity Edge, that there are studies out there that reveal that 50% of folks in those that are hiring managers in the UK, 50% of them would not hire a neurodiverse candidate if they knew that they were neurodivergent up front. And so that just says a lot about what the world is up to these days. But this is, they declare, so anyway, let me back up and just say that there was a gentleman named Tom, and he was told that he couldn't be paid for the work he did because he couldn't do the full role of what the team members were expected to do. But they were happy for him to work 2 days a week, stacking and restocking shelves. And the bigger issue is that autism is the neurodiversity with the highest unemployment rate. Now, Tom, he showed up to work with his support worker, so he had a support worker, and contributed to society with a purpose, and this was taken away from him because his parents asked if he could simply be paid. They were not asking him to be a full-time employee, and he was already working for Waitrose voluntarily starting in 2021, working 2 days a week from 9:30 until 2 p.m. So that's 4 years of work, 9 hours per week with no pay. There were clearly no complaints as they were happy for him to do it for 4 years. Instead of Waitrose, whose reported profit was $222 million last year, rewarding him with a permanent job and hours, they got scared about the amount he had worked for free and dropped him like a stone. And she writes, let's call it for what it is, discrimination and exploitation. Now, I will say, I looked up John Lewis Partnerships, and they have an entire page dedicated to diversity and inclusion. And they even claim to have 9 networks to make people feel seen, safe, and valued. So on their neurodiversity page under the John Lewis Partnerships, johnlewispartnership.co.uk, so you can go check it out for yourself. They say diversity and inclusion, that they want to be the UK's most inclusive business, that their mission, we create an inclusive environment and celebrate diversity with our partners, customers, and communities we serve. We're at our best when we feel welcomed and free to be ourselves. Our business is our business, and our differentiated culture drives our purpose with belonging and inclusion at the heart of who we are as a partnership. Their purpose is to be the most inclusive business for our partners, that's their employees, to be the most, and their happier business, to be the most inclusive business for their customers, and to be the most inclusive business for the communities that we serve. So they say why belonging and inclusion are essential. Inclusion in the partnership isn't just about having a diverse mix of partners. It's about creating an environment where every partner feels valued, respected, and included, regardless of their background, identity, or differences. It's about fostering a culture where every partner has equal opportunity to contribute, grow, and succeed. It says fosters creativity and innovation. Imagine, says John Lewis Partnership, imagine a partnership where every voice is heard and every perspective valued. That's the benefit of inclusion. When diverse minds come together, we spark creativity, innovation, and a variety of solutions. And partner engagement. When partners feel a sense of belonging and psychological safety, they'll be more committed and engaged. It's like having a big, supportive family at work, meaning partners are in it for the long haul. Kind of like Tom for 4 years when he volunteered 2 days a week to work at their store, stocking shelves. Attracts top talent. By embracing diversity, we're casting a wider net for talent. It's not just about hiring the best, it's about finding the best fit for our teams. And diversity brings a wealth of skills, experiences, and fresh perspectives. Enhancing decision-making. Diverse teams make better decisions. I've talked about this a lot. When you only have neurotypical people sitting at the table, you end up with a lot of groupthink. So you bring in somebody else who thinks a little bit differently, and what you end up with is opportunities for different and diverse thinking styles. This means smarter choices and better outcomes for the partnership. What better way to have a diversity and inclusion agreement with your partners is if you have someone who is neurodiverse. I don't know Tom personally. I have a feeling that he was PDD-NOS, which pervasively developmentally disabled, not otherwise specified, which puts him on the autism spectrum, somewhere, if it's a spectrum, where he can function on his own to a degree, but he can't live on his own and doesn't have those capabilities. Meeting our customers' needs. Our customers are diverse, so our teams should be too. An inclusive partnership understands that diversity isn't just a checkbox, it's good business. By reflecting the diversity of our customer base, we're better equipped to meet our customers' needs and keep them coming back. Trust. Here's an interesting one. Inclusion isn't just about what happens inside our partnership, it's about how we show up in the world. It sure does, John Lewis. When we prioritize inclusion, we're not just building a better partnership, we're building trust with our customers and our community. Here are their strategic pillars. improving customer representation, celebration, and ranges, robust policies and standards, building diverse teams, creating an inclusive working environment. Interesting. Creating culturally competent leaders and people managers. Here are their 9 special networks. Care experienced. Connecting partners who identify as care experienced, their careers, and their carers and allies. Cares. Supporting and building awareness and understanding of the needs, partners who are carers. They use that term for caregivers. Ability. We champion ability and disability in everybody so we can be ourselves and feel included. Faith and belief. Educating, celebrating, and increasing awareness of all faiths and beliefs. Gender equality. Championing equal opportunities for all partners regardless of gender. Linkages, and it's spelled capital L-I-N-K, capital A, capital G, capital E, capital S. Linkages. Cultivating awareness, building understanding, and promoting involvement around age diversity and inclusion. This sounds like such a lovely company to work for. Pride in partnership. Providing safe spaces for LGBTQ plus partners and allies. And unity, providing representation for all ethnically diverse partners, enabling a meaningful partner experience and promoting equity and inclusion. And working parents. Supporting working parents at every stage of the parenting journey and influencing partnership policy for working parents. We are delighted, they say at the bottom. This is a 55 Redefined, accredited by 55 Redefined as the UK's largest age-inclusive employer in 2024. So they're dealing with ageism. So that sounds just so lovely and charming and absolutely wonderful. And if you're looking for employment and you believe that they are truly going to be diverse and hire people regardless of their ability, age, gender, if you believe that, you will definitely want to go apply. But Tom was working for them for free. And when his parents and carers came forward and said, going forward, we've already proven that Tom, through 400 hours of work, has proven that he's capable and he's a stable employee. He shows up when he's supposed to show up. He does the work he's supposed to do. He's proven it over 400 hours. That he would like to now, after this, we'll call it an internship, would now like to have a paying position. And what did Waitrose say? Waitrose said, not only are we not going to pay you for the work that you're doing, you're now no longer allowed to work here anymore as a volunteer or any otherwise specified. So a follow-up to this is that ASDA actually stepped forward. They actually stepped forward and said, you know what, we will hire Tom and he can come work for us. He's been offered paid flexible employment by ASDA. And then there are folks in the UK who have stopped shopping at Waitrose and have switched and are only shopping at ASDA as a result of this. And they said that there are people that are talking that why are they not stepping forward at the head office and saying, this is not what we stand for. What is going on with this local store? They could have done so much more for their PR. So a lot of credit goes to ASDA, but only goes to prove that he can apply for a job and actually get paid for it, and that's okay. That's not actually, some people are saying that's not stepping up, that's actually just getting a job. And just goes to show that ASDA is really the one who has the DEI policy that is #1 in the UK. A lot of times it would be considered illegal, even in the United States, although now I'm not so sure with this current administration. Right now, our current president has said that anyone who is disabled and costs too much should just not actually go on living, but that's a whole other story that I covered in my previous episode. So somebody else has said that my brother is autistic with additional cognitive disability and had a similar job at Tesco for 15 years. He's always been paid and there's no excuse. There are a lot of these brands, a lot of nonprofits treat autistic neurodivergent people as discount labor, simultaneously competent enough to engage in activities that generate revenue, but fall short of paying anything remotely close for the contributions. I've run into this with myself, where I have been held back because I didn't meet the criteria for what my boss at the time and some other subsequent bosses after that felt like I didn't measure up, because I thought a little differently, I showed up a little differently, and it made people a little bit uncomfortable, I guess, sometimes, because I asked questions. It's funny, I watch myself on this podcast because I'm now my own producer as I try to support what I have going on by myself. And I have to go through and I have to watch myself on these videos, and I do all of the editing. And I think when I'm doing the recordings that I'm showing up particularly, lots of emotion, and that I have intonation to my voice, and that I seem like I'm articulate. And then I go through the editing process and I realize I still have quite a bit of monotone going on, and I tend to look away from the camera, and I don't do a lot. I mean, sometimes I am reading. I have notes that I have on my phone, and so I am looking down sometimes. But there are other times when I look off and I'm thinking through what it is I want to say. And I don't think that a lot of neurotypical people, well, I know a lot of neurotypical people. I watch a lot of podcasts and try to learn from what great podcasts do, because I do want to get better. I sometime would love to be supported and be sponsored, but for now, it's all me. It's me doing all of this because I really want to build community and spread knowledge about neurodivergent folks. I do know a lot about it, being neurodivergent myself, and my father being undiagnosed. And then my kids are also neurodivergent. So I do know a bit about this, as well as doing a lot of studying and spending a lot of time with a lot of neurodivergent people, especially as I interview them for this podcast. And I hear a lot of these same stories. I interviewed a friend of mine, Michael Michaelis. He was on here a while back. He works for a company that has not been particularly supportive of his needs, and he had to take a leave of absence for a while for some mental stuff that he was going through. It is very stressful when you feel abandoned or forgotten. And when you go in and you're really trying your dead level best, and you're performing. So all of us, we show up, we do hard work, we deliver the results. It isn't that we aren't delivering. That's the key. Tom was delivering on his job of stocking shelves. I am a data analyst. I am delivering. I'm doing the data. Unless, I'll tell you this, I did run into problems when I knew that I wasn't showing up for my manager socially, or I wasn't showing up in a gregarious sort of like all my neurotypical partners would show up. I wasn't dynamic. I wasn't showing up in wasn't being normal. I was just being weird and awkward, which is what I do. My numbers were still good. But when the pressure was started to get put on me for showing up like neurotypical people do, whether it was a presentation, I would join a presentation, I would deliver the numbers that I was responsible for the desk that I was working. Then I was being called out and told that I wasn't doing a good job because I didn't present like they thought I should be presenting. And it got me flustered, and gave me a lot of anxiety. And so I ended up, panicked, and I started making mistakes. And instead of somebody saying, it's okay, you're doing a good job, just take a breath. Instead it was, well, you just need to do better. And I would ask, like, how can I get to a promotion? What does promotion look like for me? Says, well, you need to find a project that can be scaled, and then grow that project and show that and present it and market it to people, and get buy-in for your project. But I'd never been shown how to do all of those things. And as someone who's sat in IT for a long time, if you've ever met an engineer, statistician, an analyst, a data analyst, you'll know that they just behave differently. And with no coaching, with no support, with no mentorship, it makes it really difficult to step forward and say, I don't even know what to ask for. So I thought I was just supposed to know to do these things, but I didn't know how to do these things. I didn't know who to reach out to. There wasn't a mentorship program. And so I didn't have any support, and my job began to suffer, and so did my reviews begin to suffer. But I advocated for myself. I found a new role, still with the same company, found a new role, and I ended up with an amazing manager who he supported and mentored and brought me out of the feeling of anxiety, and I felt accomplished. There were many things that I could do that a lot of other people couldn't do, and so I was recognized for a lot of the technical skills that I had, the way I understood data, the way I analyzed data, the way I think about things. I'm incredibly efficient, so I can take on multiple tasks and multiple roles. And I began to finally get recognized for that. And when I would get flustered or anxious about some way that I showed up, instead of getting upset with me and telling me I should have done better, the only ask was, Tonya, when you start feeling like that, please come to me and let's talk about that. You don't have to suffer in silence. Don't spend the weekend feeling upset with how you came and showed up. Talk to me, reach out. So that was a very different, not only that, but this same manager helped me get promoted. He advocated for me. He mentored me. He helped me get a raise. He helped me show up and perform better. And I'm in a much better place now than I've ever been before. I owe a lot to him for everything that he did. And believe me, I submitted his name multiple times for Manager of the Year with my company. But I just relate to Tom's story so much in that no matter sometimes how hard you try, it's still discrimination. Disabled people are constantly adjusting to what for us is sometimes an inaccessible planet. And we're doing the best that we can do daily. And just because we don't show up well doesn't mean that we aren't doing the right things at the right time. And apparently this isn't the first time. There was another story where Waitrose also, they said he was sacked because he ate 6 grapes. His name was Ralph Bromley. He was 56. He was learning disabled, and he'd never been in trouble before. And he found him lying trolley. And when the manageress saw him, he was immediately suspended and then fired later by a letter. Ralph lives with his 85-year-old mom, and mom is very ill with osteoporosis. And he said, I was the breadwinner. Here he is, 56, trying to take care of his mom. He'd been a trolley collector at Waitrose for 6 years, earning £6.28 in an hour. And he said, I did not want to leave the grapes in the trolley because they would get squashed when they're all pushed together. There were only 6 on the stalk. They were not in a packet or anything. They must have dropped out of someone's shopping. His brother-in-law says that he's been so upset about this and has been crying every day. The humane thing with someone like Ralph would be to say, never do that again. That would have been enough. To sack him seemed harsh. So he said, I understand Ralph has never had any warnings about this or anything else. He said they are considering going to an employment tribunal, but it would cost £150 just to write a solicitor's letter, and Ralph didn't have a great deal of money even when he was working. And of course, the spokesman said that they are unable to comment on specific cases for legal reasons. But this was written in 2006. So the story about Tom has just been a recent thing that's been written about in the last week. Waitrose is only one example, though. And I will say that there is a lot of discrimination still going on out there in the world. I know that I have had those problems. I know that my sons have had trouble getting jobs because of how they show up for employment. And so, we're all still struggling. And now with DEI policies getting rolled back and support for the disabled are being removed, we're still in the middle of a government shutdown. This is November 2nd, 2025. And we're still trying to figure out even how to get employees paid while we have parties at Mar-a-Lago and delivering $40 billion to Argentina. So, I don't see an end in sight for the neurodivergent, not from a governmental standpoint. But if you're a corporate company or corporation who have neurodivergent people on your staff, and you do, just guaranteed you do, but they could be in hiding because they don't feel comfortable reaching out, or don't feel comfortable coming forward and saying, I need help. They're probably just still trying to figure it out on their own. But you have neurodivergent people. And if you're not listening and respecting everybody, you're going to be losing out on a wide array of things that can be experienced and ideas that can be shared, especially if you're working with the public in some way. There are a lot of neurodivergent consumers out there who maybe would like to see themselves reflected in the staff that's in your business. You have somebody come in the front door who is ADHD or maybe autistic, and they see themselves and they have an opportunity to realize that they can also contribute to the world and contribute to society. So don't be like Waitrose, be like Asda, and challenge yourself to bring on a wide variety of brain wirings into your workforce. Disability is not something to be frowned on, but to be engaged in, and discrimination can be advocated for in a healthy, holistic way that is good for everybody. So if you agree with me, if you think that we should be doing more of this kind of hiring, more support, more bringing in, if you would like to see yourself seen out there, then we have to support all kinds of people, whether it's gender, whether it's disability, whether it's thinking styles, whether it's color, whether it's religion. It always helps to see yourself reflected in the world. Anyway, please subscribe, please like, please share. Buy my book. It's now out on Amazon. Just go to Amazon.com, type in Grapes of Grit. You'll find my book, $9.99 in the U.S. It varies depending on whatever country you're listening in, but it is that equivalent in your country. Thank you for supporting my podcast, and thank you for supporting the neurodivergent community. Until next time, take care, and let's stay close and be a community for each other.